I grew up in Bozeman, Montana, and I played softball, skied every weekend, ice skated as many nights as I possibly could if I got my homework done. And so I had this incredible life of freedom as a teenager, plus my mother gave me violin lessons and piano lessons and dancing lessons. I was an acrobat. I was on the stage of the Ellen Theater in Bozeman. I was not seen necessarily as an artist. I was seen as the dancer and the sports person, being on ski teams and all of that sort of thing. But I did decide to become an art major in college, and I didn't do very well. But there wasn't anything else I was interested in, so I did art. And I remember my first grade of a C in design was just devastating. But I just didn't know what else to do. But I gradually, after 2 years of art, getting married for a year, coming to the University of Washington, in my junior year, I just began to flower. I did I think, some wonderful paintings, and the professors would talk about me, and I started to get all A's. So for me, that is where my art life began. And gradually, I was represented in a number of galleries in Seattle. My paintings sold, all the paintings sold at my open houses. And I was seen as a major Northwest artist, and I'm in several books. As a result of that, I was asked to teach art, which I did, and they asked me if I would start an art school. I began the art school, not realizing that art schools don't make much money. We began with 90 students and 6 part-time faculty, and when I left after 10 years of being a director and the problem solver for all of these people, I left for California. We had 500 students and I had 30 part-time faculty. It was a major production to close down the Factory of Visual Art, but I wasn't there to do it. I didn't have to do anything. I was safe in California. And then when I moved to California and moved to Big Sur, where I lived for 4 years, the spirit charts started to emerge. I did maybe 50 or 60 of those, and they are in, they're practically all sold. They were sold in Santa Monica through the Shoshana Wayne Gallery, and in Chicago and Seattle. And then I began a series of paper structures, which you see. They're housed in plexiglass boxes, and the intent is to show light and shadow. I've done again a series of maybe 50 or 60 of these. I did them over a period of 10 years. And then when I was selling real estate, periodically I would go on trips. And one of the trips was to Baja, where I did these collages. Then I began experimenting with more abstract work, and you will see those behind me. Those are acrylic, and I had never worked with acrylic before. And I began to work with birds, which I'm still doing. Birds are a favorite subject of mine, and those were in watercolor. So the acrylic paintings, that is what I teach at the Sonoma Community Center. It's a very intuitive way of painting, where you're just working spontaneously with the paint and the flow of the brushes and your arms and your whole body. I have people stand as they work, and they produce fabulous things. I'm just always thrilled with what my adult students do. As far as the ceramics are concerned that you're seeing, they've moved through my life. I've always loved working with my hands. I've often thought that I really was a craftsman at heart, that I was not a two-dimensional person. I was a three-dimensional person because I love different media, I love working with my hands. But now I'm emerging as a two-dimensional artist, doing all of these paintings, and I'm just loving them. I'm getting to tell stories with color and create the illusion of space. After I finished doing abstracts and birds and some encaustic, I once again went back to watercolor and began working in a very intuitive way. I began my intuitive work by just doing a doodle, and just drawing a doodle and then looking to see what was in there, if anything. And then I would strengthen some of the lines and not others, so that gradually I began to see images. Some of them were very abstract. Some of them I began to put imagery in, realistic imagery, as you see in this one. And this is actually the most realistic one I think I've done, because it is taken from a photograph that I did of the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And then I superimposed a sea fan on it and fish and things that were not there. When I began teaching at my art school, I realized that my experience as an artist was basically interest. That if I was interested in something, I could do that. So the classes at the factory were not taught from the beginning, where I had to begin with drawing and design. They began with where a student's interest was. So if they wanted to make pottery, if they wanted to do tie-dye, if they wanted to weave, if they wanted to paint, the factory had the classes that would give them that, and they would have professional instructors. And that's the way I guess I feel about art. You have to be interested enough to do it at all. And I think you can only do a very good job if you get to take whatever it is that you want to take. That is how I became an artist, basically. So thinking back to that C grade that I got in design, it was because the instructor was mean. He was not helpful, he was dictatorial, and he destroyed me, and I could have stayed destroyed. So I think that's true of all kids in school. If they have a helpful teacher, they're fine. I feel very, very fortunate to be a visual artist. I don't have to dance anymore. I don't have to move my body around. I don't ski anymore. But I have my art. I can work alone. I don't have to have a group. And I often think that we who are in the visual arts are so very fortunate, because we can just delve into ourselves and either work with clay or wood, or we can work with paint. And we have an immeasurably exciting and beautiful and spiritual life as a result of it. So that is what I'm doing these days. I'm just enjoying all of that. And I'm so thankful to be retired and get to have all this freedom of time.